All right. So the most important channel for B2B marketers doesn't show up in a dashboard. You can't math your way into it. You can't just decide to do more of it. And a lot of it is pretty unattributable. So on today's episode, Mark and I are going to talk about dark social, the dark funnel, and how we think about both of these at Metadata. These are like the conversations being held between friends, recommendations on social channels, influencers, and third-party content that your buyers are engaging with. And companies who don't embrace this just can't win. Demand Gen U is officially in session. Let's do it. All right, so Mark, I get to lead this one today and interview you. So we're going to talk about dark social, dark funnel. It's a topic we both are passionate about. I know that. And we could go forever. So we'll try and keep this to the tight.
Everyone is talking about it right now too, so it's timely.
That's true. Yep. I think I saw a post about it this morning. So what we'll do, kind of like we do with a lot of these, is we'll start with defining them. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about how we define them here, and then we're going to jump in and just really talk about what we do about it at Metadata and some things that you can take away and try yourself. So let's start with the definition. We'll define both of these as well, because there are differences despite what a lot of people, or how a lot of it comes off. So a lot of people, I think, still talk about these as the same thing: dark social, dark funnel, use them interchangeably, and they're definitely not. So we'll start there. So dark social, you want to give a crack at defining that?
Sure. I think the easiest way to define it is it's not trademarked, like dark funnel is trademarked by 6 cents. No, but for real.
So did they trademark that? Oh, okay. We can't say
it's
it.
actually trademarked.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, no royalties. So for dark social, for me, is just basically how you drive word of mouth in the market. So it's communities like Rev Genius and Pavilion. It's groups like DGMG. It's, podcasts and building your audiences. It's RIP Clubhouse, even though I never wasted a second on there. It's YouTube. It's all of these things that we use in our day-to-day, and it's how we buy. But it's just what you can't measure, and it's the hardest thing to show that, it's working, because you can't measure it if you're still doing marketing by, the predictable revenue way of doing marketing in 2010.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be as simple as literally a conversation between friends, like I mentioned in the opening. It could be literally like, oh, I'm thinking about this new platform or this tool. Oh, hey, my buddy over there that I used to work with 5 years ago is now over at this other company. They're using it. I'm just going to go have a conversation with them. And I know from my perspective, being a buyer of tools, at these companies that I worked at in ops roles, for me, that was actually one of the most, probably the most important thing. Like I could have a bake-off between two different tools, and if everything else is the same, and I've got positive dark social, I guess, on one of them, I mean, it's obvious which one I'm picking. So it's really important.
Well, all it comes down to is you're trying to seek direction or validation from people that you trust. It's friends, it's influencers, it's people that you've worked with. It's how we buy things in our personal lives. We ask, if you're buying something for your home, you're going to ask your friend, what did you buy for this? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Why would we expect that we would be any different in our work lives? So it's how we buy things in our lives, and yet we as marketers have a tendency to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and I think, a couple interesting things. Well, one of them, I think the influencers is like a way to game it almost. You know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't say it is dark social, but I think it's like the kind that maybe people might know is going on a little bit more, so it's maybe not as powerful, but still holds quite a bit of weight.
I don't think people know that much yet. I think their eyes will be opened when it becomes more widely known. But I hear what you're saying.
That could be. Maybe, yeah. And it's probably because we see it so much.
It's like the early stages. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Especially in B2B. I mean, B2C, it's like,
it's
slap Ryan Reynolds' name on a bottle of liquor, and that thing's gonna basically take off immediately, even if it tastes like shit. But
didn't know you were a Ryan Reynolds fan.
I wasn't, but I like it because he's a businessman. Actually, no, I do like writing mails. I will say that. Yeah. Here's the other thing about dark social is that it's basically like the most honest amplification mechanism that you'll have. And so it can work for you or it can actually backfire against you as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a lot of ways, it's what your brand is known as, outside in the world. And I think we've got a couple of examples of things that we do to help, facilitate and create positive experiences, in dark social for metadata. But if you're a jackass at the end of the day during some of these, like, it can also be kind of permeate through the dark social as well. And all it takes is one person to share a bad experience. And then, that can continue to be shared with other people who are your buyers at the end of the day.
Yeah, like imagine, you are going to your friend, that you trust who's using a tool, and you're like, hey, what do you think about this? And they just say something as simple as like, you're already off. Like you've just done, you know what I mean? They don't even have to say 3 words like, you're like, okay, enough said. So, I mean, it is really, really, really powerful in both directions. Because also if they're like, oh my gosh, it was like the best experience I had. It was easy to work with them. Sales process was simple. They didn't pitch slap me. Onboarding, like if you hear that, you're also like, oh my gosh, I want some of that. And so it's just like, we wish we could manufacture it, but it's probably best that we can't. You know what I mean? So that's dark social. Is there any other things like components of dark social we're missing out on?
I would say, the organic side of social is a huge part of this too. So I think, and we'll probably talk about this, I think later in this episode or probably another episode, I feel like we have a tendency to do this, is how B2B companies are using social. And it's not just the, hey, come attend our webinar, to get signups from the company page and everybody sharing the same thing. It's how your own employees are acting as an extension of your brand on LinkedIn. So their comments, their posts, like what they're responding to, the messages that they're responding to, like you can't measure it and you really have no idea when it's happening or how it's happening, but you just have to make sure that you are empowering your own employees to be an extension of your brand and trust that they're going to do the right thing.
That's a great point because we've kind of been talking about dark social almost like completely outside of your company, like the things that are happening on, but like it's absolutely, we create our own dark social, honestly, like with the way that we do things, just like what you were talking about, our organic social kind of strategy. We're building our own dark social too, honestly. And so it's not just what people are saying. So there are some things I guess you can do, on your own to kind of help promote it. But again, it's got to be probably like really authentic and very like, probably that side of it is like not as marketing heavy, you know what I mean? Like on the marketing speak and like how we're going to describe the product and all that. It's probably a little bit more about building relationships, building trust.
It should have nothing to do with your product and how you're marketing it. It's exactly what you just said, and it's playing the long game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I know we're going to talk about some of the things that we do here in a little bit, and so let's move over to dark funnel. All right, so we talked about dark social. Now dark funnel's different. What is the dark funnel? And I'm trying to remember the first time I heard this, it was from 6 Sense. And it was actually when I was at Tableau. And they were selling us, and I was like, ooh, I love the name, to be honest. Like, I loved it. I was just like, oh,
it is good marketing.
Yeah. I like it. And so I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And I'd already kind of understood. Well, sorry, I'm already getting into it before I define it. Let's define it first. How do we define dark funnel?
So I think dark funnel is what comes after dark social, because once people have, looked for recommendations and found the information that they're looking for in all of these channels that you can't track, then it's that point in time where they start to search for whatever they've now been recommended and what they've zeroed in on search, on G2, on other review sites, on your website. And it's that moment in time where it looks like they're starting to show intent. So I look at it as just, dark social turning into intent data.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't think about it that way, actually. I thought about them as pretty separate. Like, definitely the definition is still, I think usually this kind of dark funnel data comes from like your traditional intent data sources, right? So it's like, you got a Bombora that's sitting on top of all these websites, and it sees who's coming to visit those and what they're reading, and then associates those with like things that they might be interested in. And there's other ways of, I guess, not just websites, but I'm trying to think of the other, like job sites, like job sites, they'll comb job sites and see like what people are hiring for and like use that. And so these are the funnels. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, the reason I think they're separate is like, I could realize I have a problem and go start to search for that first before I talk to somebody. It could happen in both ways, I think. I talk to somebody first through dark social, I'm getting some things, or I'm maybe just seeing things, and then I go and do some of my own research, and now I'm showing that intent. Or it's like I'm just getting introduced to it, and I want to do some more research, and then I go and do some, and then I come back and I get some dark social. So I think they're interrelated.
They are, but
well.
then that's the minute that you're getting hounded by sales teams because it looks like you're showing intent, and I'm using heavy air quotes here. So if you start there first, it's a surefire way to get hit up by SDRs and AEs.
Yeah, true. What else goes? So is that really it on dark funnel? I mean, it really is. I mean, basically your kind of tried and true intent data. Is that it?
Yeah, more or less. I think the other big difference though is that on dark social, the people who are doing all of these activities, on Slack, in different communities, on LinkedIn, like you name it, they're individual people at the end of the day. And then with the dark funnel, it's really at the account level. So any of these intent data providers are going to show you accounts. They're not going to show you the exact person who's searching for, a demand generation platform from metadata. They'll show somebody at John's Trucking is looking for it, although I don't think we have any trucking customers. But it's not getting down to the individual level because you still need to know what to do with all of that intent at the end of the day. It doesn't magically just fix bad marketing or put you right in front of the people who are ready to buy.
Yeah. And probably unlike dark social, are there a lot of things you can do? Are there many things you can do to influence dark funnel? I'm trying to think. Like I'm not really think you can't really game or influence dark funnel as much. I don't know, unless you're creating a bunch of the content yourself.
Oh, no, I think that's exactly what it is. I think you influence a dark funnel when you are a marketing team that sees the importance of dark social and finding the balance between a lot of these things that you can't measure because it takes time, it takes trust, and it takes credibility to get sign off from your CEO to let you do stuff like this. And usually that comes in the way of you consistently hitting your number so you can earn those opportunities to spend more time in communities, build your own community, launch a podcast like this. So I think it just takes work. It's not a hack, and I hate the term growth hacking. It's a joke.
How accurate do you think the dark funnel intent data is? I'm just curious. I know this isn't even in our. I'm throwing an audible.
No.
I'm just curious. Like, what do you think? Because how do you think? How accurate do you think that is?
I think depending on the intent data provider, I've had better experiences with some than others. But again, it all comes down to your strategy and then what you're doing with the intent data, because like I mentioned earlier, it's still at the account level. So you need to figure out who do you think is actually researching, whatever you're selling, product or service wise, and then make sure that your targeting is in place. Because if you have the right targeting, then I think any, dark funnel data is useful. But if your targeting sucks, then you're not going to see much out of the dark funnel either.
Yeah, that's true. And we definitely, like, when I use intent-based audiences, especially for our like lower funnel stuff, I definitely do see a marked increase in conversion, from the intent audiences that we use. And so I know hard to know how accurate it is, but it definitely gives you lift. And so you start to assume like, well, there's some accuracy there because, you are seeing a difference in performance, and it's better usually when you're layering on intent. Cool. You can buy dark funnel data. You can't buy dark social data, right?
I don't know, maybe in dark web, but that might be a Joe Rogan episode. Yeah.
I got a story around that. Oh.
Yeah.
Funny thing is I do. Okay. So should we talk a little bit about kind of how some of the things that we do at Metadata and some of the things that we've seen maybe?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So we'll focus on the dark social because that's the thing I think, out of those two, I think dark social is your most important, I guess, of the two. They're both important, but like if I were going to choose one, I would pick like, can I fix dark social or can I make dark social work better for me?
I also think it's where people are most confused on how do you get started and what do you do, because if you look at the dark funnel from an intent data perspective, you can go buy an intent data provider. You still have to know what to do with it, but a lot of people don't know where to get started when it comes to dark social.
Yeah. All right. So now people listening to this podcast, they're like, all right, I'm in. You bought me in. I already knew it, but now like, what do I do? So what do we do at Metadata? Like, what's the most, are there like big blocking and tackling things you got to get done first before you can be like, all right, we're going to actually focus on this?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you my answer, but you started before me at Metadata, and I feel like I kind of walked into a bit of a luxury that a lot of marketers don't have. So the luxury is leadership understands the value of it and wants and encourages employees to do that as part of their day-to-day. So I think before you get started with any of this, a lot of people are probably wondering, how do you get leadership on board? So what did you do? How did you work with Olivier and Gil and Clay and others? Because we have a luxury that many marketers don't have.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And, when I started here part-time, it was funny. Gil wanted me to leverage my personal brand at that point and go all in on Metadata. I'm like, Gil, but I work at Workfront. You know what I mean? Like I'm like helping you out here, but my full-time job is at Workfront, so I can't like go all in on organic social. Like I'm part of Metadata, y'all. Like everybody go buy. So, but I knew from the beginning because he was pushing me on it, and he wasn't really in social at that time at all. Really, just like dabbling in it. He had a big following because I think they did a lot of campaigns for him before I joined just to boost his following, so he could like kind of do what we're doing now. But it didn't, he had so many other things going on. But he, from the beginning, he was already bought in that organic social and leveraging that for what we're trying to do is going to be a big important part of our growth. And so it was already like, the good news is I didn't have to do much. I didn't have to do any selling, really. He wanted it, even though he wasn't doing it. He knew what he wanted. So it was really nice. It was a luxury for me too. Just like you said, it was a luxury for you walking in. It was already kind of like running. It was a luxury for me too, because I knew coming into the role full time, I wanted that to be one of the main strategies. Because of course, like we've been on LinkedIn for a while. We see how it works. We see that like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? Like I love this. And companies I would have maybe never known of before, now I do because of their content and their amazing like approach on social. So yeah, so that wasn't hard. I think Olivier was, and some of the people some of the employees are definitely more forward than than others. And Olivier was one that, we had to chip away a little bit, you know what I mean? But he's definitely come around now. And I think then once everybody sees just how well it works, and from Mark and I's perspective, it comes through the form of literally the sales reps telling us or sending us chorus or gong calls of like, everybody I talk to basically says, I love the content Mark and Jason are putting on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? It's not like I love the content they're sending us in email. I mean, we do that too, but I see Mark and Jason on LinkedIn all the time, and I love what they're putting out there. And so we kind of knew it worked.
Well, we do now, but I think as we were starting to like truly double down on organic social and participating in communities like DGMG, you don't really know in the moment that it's working. So you kind of have to just keep doing it, keep showing up consistently, play the long game, be helpful, and then you start to see those returns and then compound over time. I think I've been asked before, how do I get started at my own company doing this? Because I don't have that luxury right now. And I think oftentimes like what I would do was I would share other companies that I aspire to kind of be marketing wise or even just at the company level, and share examples of it with screenshots with the CEO. I did it at my last company. I've done it at companies before. Like I think we do it even here sometimes too, just to show leadership what good looks like. And then as soon as they start to see that, it's like, well, of course I want that. Like, why wouldn't I want that? So then you start to see those results once you show up consistently.
And, just like other hard KPIs, we have leading indicators for it too. You know what I mean? Like just the feedback we get on social. You know what I mean? If we put something out there and we get a lot of comments on it, or we get a lot of engagement on it, then it's like, oh, okay, that's a leading indicator that, oh, okay, this actually might be getting people's attention and people might be reading this stuff. And that kind of leads to the long game. So, kind of like revenue, you've got leading indicators. You don't start a marketing campaign and all of a sudden day 2, you've got revenue, you got leading indicators you look at. And so we look at those too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other big thing is, organic social is a big component of it, but, looking at communities too. So starting to see what people are talking about in DGMG or Pavilion or one of the other big communities, and seeing questions that people are asking, seeing comments that people are leaving, jumping into those conversations and trying to be helpful without pushing metadata. Like, perfect example, there was a comment that I responded to, I think it was like a month or so ago. It just came in as a closed won deal yesterday, ironically enough, and it said inbound, it said it was direct, and it 100% wasn't, because I responded to a comment in there. I scheduled a demo with him the next day, and nice. 30, 40 days later, it's not only a deal, but it's a closed won deal. So like, it works. I think we'll get into how we're trying to measure some of it. We're not trying to measure everything about it because you can't, and we're okay with it. But I think there still are some creative things that people have been trying lately with, hey, how did you hear about us, and open attribution. We haven't gotten to that yet, but I think we want to.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting for us too is this goes past acquisition for us. So like, yeah, it works well for acquisition. We're getting our messaging out there free to the people that should be seeing it. And okay, great, they become a customer. But then what happens is, now they're a customer, they still see Mark and I as marketing experts, in our realm. Because of the stuff that they saw through the acquisition process, and now they're a customer, they still see it. So the other thing that we do is, if a customer's stuck with like their strategy or really anything related to marketing, Mark and I actually jump on the phone with them. So we actually just did we both signed up for 3 kind of 1-hour strategy sessions each with different customers for December and January. They got filled up like pretty much immediately with our customers, and that goes a long way too, because now they saw you as a as a trust, you built trust with them during the acquisition process. They onboarded. Now they're actually coming back to you for more help. So now it's not just about the platform, and so the experience that they're getting with working with us now, and and the CSM that they have, and like helping them through all of that really leads to it. So it doesn't stop when you got that acquisition, right?
No, not at all. And I think in a lot of ways it's customer marketing too at that point, which I know we have another episode that we're doing on that soon too. So all this stuff's blended together. I think the other thing that I wanted to touch on, and we're going to give away a little bit here, but not going to give away too much because there's still a lot of work that you need to do in order to make this happen, is just our approach to how we nurture people. So Jason, do you want to give a quick little rundown of how we approach the new way of nurturing people?
Yeah. So we basically, our nurture strategy is organic LinkedIn. And, we've done a couple things with this, but one of the main programs that we're really proud of having is this program that we've built that connects us to other like marketers in similar roles as us, in similar companies that would have benefit from using metadata. And we're marketers, they're marketers, easy like LinkedIn connection. And then we focus on distributing our content. And this is content that is not like, this is why metadata is good. This is metadata this, metadata that. This is like 6 ABM and demand gen campaign ideas you can steal. How to build a demand model that your CFO will respect. It's basically content about how to be a better B2B marketer. And so they start to see all that stuff, and they have no opportunity with us. We're just connecting with them. It's not like they came in demo request or anything. We're just saying this is our target list of people that we think should be buying our platform and would get benefit from it. And let's connect with them on social, and then let's just kind of like have them see the content that we put out there. If they like the content, if they're getting help from it, then they will probably come and check us out, the website. Well, they're putting out helpful content. Maybe their platform is helpful. It's smart content. Maybe the platform is smart. And so that's what we're hoping, that they make that small leap. That's not a big leap, And so that's one of our bigger and longer strategies that have been worked
I
really
mean, that's
well
how
for
you
us.
that's how you create demand. It's people
Yeah.
who are not in market for something. You're
Exactly.
building a relationship, you're manufacturing word of mouth because of all this work that you're putting into it, so that when they are ready to buy, they're coming to you immediately, and they're probably ready to buy you because of everything that they've consumed and interacted with for the last 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, and you've built a relationship with them through that content. And it is a little easier for us because we're marketers selling to marketers, right? So like if they're getting helpful content from a marketer and then they either come and talk to us or they're being sold to us or we join a demo request call or something like that. I mean, there's a little bit maybe stronger connection there because we can talk about how we use metadata, they can get it. But it still can be replicated, even if you're not selling to yourself, it can absolutely be replicated. And you can provide help, as a marketing team to your potential buyers. You don't have to be a marketer selling to marketers.
Yeah, like as long as you're providing helpful things without asking for anything in return right away, you can do this in any industry. You don't have to be marketing to marketers.
Yeah, definitely. Should we jump into some questions?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. Let's see. There's one about measurement, and we didn't really touch on measurement. So this is a good one. Is there any way to actually measure this stuff?
Where do I get started? So I think the honest answer is not really. I think you can find the right balance between showing qualitative things and then trying to measure, some attribution, the A word that I think we all hate here, on an open text question at the end, like some companies are starting to do. But I think for us, what we look at is let's start with organic social. We're looking at the comments that people are leaving, who's leaving those comments, the companies that they're coming from. Are they finding it helpful? I think we're looking at the messages that you or I or Justin get on, a weekly and monthly basis. We take screenshots of those. We share it internally with the rest of our sales team and our customer success team and use those as real leading indicators. And I think it's tough because you're relying on screenshots at the end of the day and kind of a gut feeling. But I think as long as you start to see an uptick in those and over time you're seeing the right people with the right titles, that's all the measurement that I need to know that, hey, you're on the right track. You just got to keep doing it consistently.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of it is the feedback we get from sales. Because obviously if this stuff wasn't helping sales in some way, then would we keep doing it? And so when I hear from them, when they're the biggest one for me is it's so easy to outbound. And so to me, because they're people know who we are,
Yep.
And it's so that kind of feedback when a year and a half ago, that was definitely not the case. And just when they come to us and the sales reps are sending us those things, the chorus calls and things where people are recommending, or not recommending, sorry, but talking about what they've seen from us and that just helps the sales conversation because now the sales rep, if they hear that, they know, okay, this person already kind of trusts us a little bit. You know what I mean? They already know us a little bit because of that stuff. And so it's an easier conversation. And so that's one of the things I look at. And then like you mentioned, today we're asking, once you become a customer, we're asking where you first heard of us. But there's lots of problems wrapped up in that. It could be 3 months since they, or 4 or 5 months since they heard from us. They might not remember. So Mark and I are trying to figure out what's the best way we can get that further upstream. But again, of course, without creating an obstacle to any kind of conversions. But
yeah, I think 2 things that I would add. One, yes, our sales team butters us up sometimes, but they also tear us back down when we deserve it. So it's not just all sun and rainbows here. And then I think the second thing is, for me, the craziest and probably coolest part in all of this is when you hear mentions on call recordings from people who I've never even heard of before. And when I look at some of the stuff that I'm seeing on my own LinkedIn post, I have a rough idea of, oh, that name looks familiar, or I see that person, commenting all the time, or, doing whatever, or I've seen that person in DGMG before. But when people mention, you or me and our marketing on a call recording, and I've never heard of them, it's okay, this stuff works, and you can't measure it.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's go to another question. What are the best ways to increase the positive dark social going on in your category or, oh wait, what are the best ways to increase? Oh yeah, positive dark social going on in your category or for your brand. So I guess I'm talking about like, there could be, I guess, dark social going on for a category too, but for your brand. So what are the best ways to increase those?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a stretch, but I think look at our event in October, Demand. Mm-hmm. That was an event for the community, for the category that we're trying to create. We were not, pushing metadata or pitch slapping anyone by any means. And what we saw coming out of it, both on LinkedIn comments, on comments in communities, people were writing their own blog posts about what they learned. Like, you can create that by way of, putting on a legit event with legit content that isn't pushing your company, first and foremost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm going to go back to what everyone doesn't want to hear, which is this all really starts with making sure everybody has the best experience possible with your brand. You know what I mean? So like all the way from net new acquisition, the marketing you're doing there, onboarding, coming customer, even offboarding, like they choose to churn. Honestly, you can still get good dark social recommendations from churned customers. Absolutely. That should be.
We've had some come back recently.
Yeah. Sometimes there's extenuating circumstances of like why they have to churn or something, and they still had a positive experience, but you just want to really like, if your intentions, this is honestly probably what it comes back to. Like the simplest way to think about it is like, if your company's leadership intentions are really right for the customer, then it kind of and if everything falls from that, then that is the best way to generate positive dark social. I mean, I really like.
Yeah. I mean, in some of the groups that I respond to questions or comments on, the answer that I give is a completely honest, straight shooting answer that if it leads them to metadata, great. And if it doesn't lead them to metadata, I am totally fine with that. So I answer it, and I'm not talking about metadata at all. And I think when people can see the honesty and the transparency behind whatever you're sharing, like you're playing the long game and you get people to know, like, and trust you.
I mean, imagine the trust you can build by just being brutally honest about what you can do. It's like one of the graphics that we have that shows that like we're 82% automated. You know what I mean? Like we're not trying to say we're 100% automated because like, is anything really 100% automated? So even with those like brutally honest, like, no, we just don't do that. You know what I mean? Not trying to nuance your way into it. Like, oh, you can do this and like we can configure it this way and do this. Like, nope, we just don't do it. That wasn't our, that's not our primary use case. You can get just as much, like that's just as important to somebody, more important actually than hearing the like, yes, but, or yes, we can nuance it, or, and so just really being honest either way. You know what I mean? Honest in the positive way, honest in where you think it might look negative for your brand, but it's really just showing that honesty, and that when you're honest like that, the reception is, okay, you actually care about my success, not just getting me in as a customer.
I mean, that even comes up in the sales process with us too, because I know many of our AEs, they're brutally honest, and they will be the first to say, one of our competitors has great functionality in this area, or, they have great intent data or whatever it is. And I think so many prospects are used to or almost expecting us to badmouth other companies, and that's not our MO here. And I think we like being known as that company who doesn't do that. And I think that goes a long way too in the experience that people are having with your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we got another episode in the books.
That was good. We'll have to do another one soon.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Remember, subscribe if you like it. Build up our subscription base. We'll be here every week. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.